I was blowing out my 35th
Oh
birthday
my God,
candles
yes, of
when
course.
someone knocked on my door, and the person
I
standing
love
there
you
was the
so
last
much.
person
It
I
was
ever
Emily,
expected to
my
see.
first love, the girl I hadn't seen in 17 years. But she wasn't holding a gift. She was holding a faded piece of paper with my handwriting on it. A promise I made when I was 18 years old. A promise I completely forgot. But she carried it with her for 17 years. And when she told me why she came back, I realized my forgotten promise was connected to a secret she had kept all these years. The night I turned 35, I thought it would be just another ordinary birthday. A small dinner, a few close friends, some laughter, a little cake, and then back to the same quiet apartment in Boston, Massachusetts. Life had become predictable. Work, responsibilities, and long nights alone had replaced the dreams I once had as a teenager. I'd stopped expecting surprises. But then, at exactly 8:17 p.m., someone knocked on my door. I smiled, thinking it was one of my friends arriving late. I walked toward the entrance, ready to make a joke about their timing. But the moment I opened the door, my smile disappeared. Standing in front of me was Emily Carter, the girl who had once been my closest friend, the girl I hadn't seen in 17 years. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other. She looked familiar yet different. The same kind eyes I remembered from high school were still there, but now they carried years of stories, struggles, and memories. In her hand was a small folded piece of paper, an old piece of paper. "Happy birthday, Jake," she said quietly. I couldn't move. "Emily, what are you doing here?" She looked down at the paper and then back at me. "I came to return something you gave me a long time ago." I took the paper from her hands. The edges were worn, and the color had faded with time. It looked like something that had been protected carefully for years. "What is this?" I asked. She smiled softly. "Open it." Slowly, I unfolded the paper. The handwriting on it made my heart stop, because I recognized it instantly. It was mine. At the top, I saw the words, "Emily and Jake's promise." Suddenly, everything around me disappeared. The voices from my birthday party behind me, the music playing in the background, the laughter of my friends, all of it faded away, because I remembered that promise. 17 years earlier, Emily and I were 18 years old, sitting behind our high school football field after graduation practice. We were young, fearless, and convinced that the future would always go exactly the way we imagined. Emily wanted to become a writer. I wanted to build a successful career and see the world. We spent hours talking about our dreams, our fears, and the kind of lives we hoped to create. Then, as a joke, I pulled out a piece of paper from my notebook. I wrote, "If we are both single when we turn 35, we will marry each other." Emily laughed when she read it. She looked at me and said, "You know, you're probably going to forget this someday." I laughed and replied, "Never. This is our official backup plan." We both signed the paper like it was a serious agreement. Then we hid it inside an old book at school, believing we would find it years later and laugh about how young and silly we were. But life changed everything. After graduation, we slowly moved in different directions. College took us to different places. New friendships came, new relationships came, and eventually the calls stopped. The messages became fewer. Until one day, we became two people who knew everything about each other, and then knew nothing at all. I heard Emily had moved away. She heard I was building my career in Boston. Years passed, 17 years passed, and somehow the person who once understood my every thought became a distant memory. I looked down at the note again. My younger self's handwriting stared back at me. At 35, if life hasn't given us someone else, maybe we should find our way back to each other. I looked at Emily, unable to understand how she still had it. "Why did you keep this?" I finally asked. Her eyes became emotional. "Because you wrote something you didn't believe you would need." She paused for a moment. "But I did." I didn't know how to answer. There was a silence between us. Then Emily took a deep breath and said something I never expected to hear. "I didn't come here because of the promise, Jake." She looked at the old note in my hand. "I came because 17 years ago, before we lost contact, you gave me something else." My heart started beating faster. "What are you talking about?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "And I think it's time you knew the truth." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about an old promise from our teenage years. Emily had been carrying a secret for 17 years, and the truth she was about to reveal would change everything I thought I knew about our story. Emily stood there quietly for a few seconds, as if she was trying to find the right words. The confident woman I saw at my doorstep suddenly looked like the same 18-year-old girl who used to sit beside me after school, afraid to say goodbye. She reached into her bag and pulled out another small envelope. "I found this when I was cleaning my mother's house last year," she said. "I never knew she kept it." I looked confused. "What is it?" Emily handed it to me. Inside was a photograph of us from graduation day. We were standing beside that old football field, smiling like the world belonged to us. On the back of the photo, there was a message written in my handwriting. "No matter where life takes us, I hope you always know you were the person who believed in me first." I felt a lump in my throat. I had completely forgotten writing those words, but Emily hadn't. She explained that after graduation, when life pulled us apart, she kept that photo and the promise, because those moments reminded her of who we were before the world became complicated. She wasn't waiting 17 years for me to rescue her. She wasn't stuck in the past. She had lived her life, followed her dreams, and experienced heartbreak just like I had. But she always wondered one thing: what if the person who knew me best was the person I let walk away? Her words stayed with me, because deep down I had wondered the same thing many times. That night, instead of celebrating my birthday with my friends, Emily and I walked through the streets of Boston, talking about everything we had missed. She told me about her years as a writer, the places she traveled, and the moments she wished she could have shared with me. I told her about my failures, my fears, and how many times I had felt lost while pretending everything was fine. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just myself. And Emily was still the person who understood that version of me. Over the next few months, we started meeting again. Not because of an old promise, not because of a piece of paper, but because we discovered something unexpected. The connection we thought we had lost was never really gone. We laughed at how different we had become, but also how much we were still the same. She still knew when I was pretending to be okay. I still knew when she was hiding her worries behind a smile. One evening, almost a year after she returned, we went back to the same high school football field where everything started. The old place looked smaller than we remembered. The tree where we used to sit was still there. Emily took out the original note and smiled. "I guess we should decide what happens now." I laughed. "Are you asking me to honor a 17-year-old contract?" She smiled. "No, I'm asking if the person you are today would choose me." I looked at the woman standing in front of me, not the girl from my memories, not the promise from our childhood, but Emily, the person who had grown, changed, and still found her way back into my life. And I knew the answer. A few months later, surrounded by the friends who witnessed our unexpected reunion, Emily and I finally made a new promise. Not one written by teenagers who didn't understand life. A promise made by two adults who knew how difficult life could be, but also knew that some people are worth choosing again and again. The old note stayed with us, not as a reminder of a promise we almost lost, but as proof that sometimes the right person doesn't disappear from your story. Sometimes they simply wait for the right chapter to begin.